Hello and welcome, everyone! Apparently, I'm being told that we have already 7 people waiting for us, and all I want to say is why.
Being fair, 2 of them are probably us.
Okay, that makes more
But-
sense.
Yes.
Now the world makes sense. But if you're
hello,
in the...
everyone.
Yes.
Hello world.
Now you see some new stuff that I have up. It's not the best, but I have a rule, and this is something I've been saying because I have been listening to everyone's advice. I have a rule. I'm not going to ask someone to make art until I have the money ready for them. I'm kind of have a stance that I refuse to do IOUs to my artists. So that's why usually stuff is slow art and emote wise, but I like that rule and it means I'm not Magic the Gathering.
Wow.
WotC does not pay its artists. I'm sorry. It's been proven in court. Like they've settled, but damn.
The fact that we're already
bashing another card game.
Yeah. Welcome to the Final Fantasy trading card game where no other card games matter.
Well,
Hey, to be fair, I frequently walk past all the Magic players at Guff in Ballarat, and they'll just walk past every time, like, imagine playing a shit game.
I love walk. No, my favorite one is like they're like, "Oh, what's so good about FF compared to Magic?" I'm like, I get to draw 2 cards at the start of turn instead of 1, and they just look like, "Oh shit, that's a legit good argument."
And you get to pitch cards for resources.
Yeah, there's no mana screw.
Yeah, it's literally FF is what would happen to Magic if half the variant factors were removed.
It's one thing that slightly upsets me about Magic still being so, well, it's not upsets me, I love it, but the fact that it's still such a dominant game, even though since its creation, every card game that has come out has tried to improve on, and most of the time successfully improved on the game and made a better version of it, but Magic's just been around longer.
That's the only real argument for the game. It's just that I was here first.
Yep.
I would disagree with that. I think Magic's biggest advantage, and this is twofold, is just the secondary market is the most solid. Like, that's just the fact. It's the oldest and most established. But its IP is actually fairly generic. Like, you look at Yu-Gi-Oh! What if I'm not a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh? You look at FF. What if I'm not a fan of FF? You know, it's why also I think Flesh and Blood is doing so good. They've got such, like, generic stories or easy-to-access stories that, you play Magic the Gathering, and like, this character looks cool. You learn everything about them in a quick wiki search.
I don't know, I feel like that's only like 10% of players, though, that actually give a shit about that.
On the same token as well, if you think about it from that perspective, you can, like, if you're looking from the Final Fantasy side of things, you can just choose to play your favorite game.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, a new person looking in, like, TCG-wise, they always look at, the picture on the box. And if it's not something they can connect to or understand or establish, it sort of affects, I think, getting new players in or people into the game.
So what you're saying is we need more dinosaurs in Final Fantasy trading card game.
Yes, that's just a fact in everything. We always need more dinosaurs. But yeah, so I think just that can hurt. It's why I try and tell people, like, especially they go, "Oh, I'm not a fan of FF." I'm like, it doesn't matter. The games do not matter to the card game. Just have fun and play.
Exactly, that's the only thing that we ask for. Come along, have fun, play some cards, enjoy yourself.
So we're going to move on to sort of now the main reason. We had a bit of an intro chat while people came in. I will say this right now, and if chat can help me, it's going to be spoiler-free until we release our spoiler. Once we release our spoiler, we're sort of going to be having a bit more discussion, but just for people who are avoiding them, there may be some, I don't know, I just want to be polite to people who are. Let's avoid that stuff for now. If you want to use codes or whatever, that's fine. But yeah, we'll be fairly spoiler free until we get our big one up. But for starters, we're going to be talking about something that happened in Australia recently. We got an L6 major, month and a half event?
Yeah, about that.
And some interesting results, I at least personally feel.
I feel like it was a very healthy and unhealthy thing to happen.
Yeah, the big thing that I found at the very least with the L6 events is that the biggest problem was you could build one of the most powerful decks in the entire format using one set.
Two most powerful, I reckon. Because you had 3 Sophie and March to grab Sophie from deck.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
had that as well.
yeah. So Soiree and Monks.
Well, we were sort of between. We had part of it before, part of it after. I felt the one before Soiree came in was actually fairly interesting. Like, we had a huge range of decks for that one. Or I think there was 3 that we had before rotation.
And then Soiree come along and ruined everything.
Yeah.
To be fair though, at each event, Soiree was only represented 2 or 3 times. Like the rest of the decks were pretty broad, thankfully. Like for me, in particular, I played the Monks deck to get the invite to the Nationals, and then after that, like the amount of viable decks, like I still did really well playing Bart's Bocco. I still did really well playing party decks like Mono Fire, just having fun. Like,
Yeah.
Everything was viable, and the deck building became. My favorite part was just like having such a limited card pool made deck building so much more fun somehow.
It really did. It really did. I in my one of my L6 events, I actually took a Vestyle deck to the event. And like, because you had the new wall, you had Sophie to capitalize on all the 5-cost characters that you were playing, and to my absolute surprise, the deck actually went amazingly well. And I'm going to put this out here. This is not a joke. This is not a meme or any sort of variety of the kind. The card that actually performed the best in that deck was Omega.
Oh yeah,
Because it's actually surprisingly difficult to deal with a 10k forward that can't be broken once and then just doesn't have to attack to hit you.
Yeah. That's kind of what I liked.
Limited answers.
Yeah, I kind of like that with L6. And I honestly, the thing that I liked is there was like a few people that I knew that were fairly new to the game, and they felt a little bit intimidated in standard, and then this comes up and they're like, oh, I could just focus on some of these that I already have. I'm like, yeah, have fun.
I think just on that note as well, adding on to that, another good part of L6 was for new players as well, there was the Guardians and the Avalanche Operative starter decks that came out that were both very viable options as well. Like, you didn't need older cards to make them run.
Completely agree with that. With the exception of Opus 11, every single set in L6 was readily accessible.
Yeah, it was just... I think it was good. I think it was interesting. I don't know. I wish we had played a little further in to see if Soiree would have continued to dominate. I have a feeling it wouldn't have, honestly.
So my thinking on Soiree is that, yes, like Soiree was the deck to beat, and it was just the cleanest and most consistent engine to put together. I actually found that the deck performs less well when it's got a high amount of early game pressure put on it, and the most powerful deck that was capable of doing that, in my opinion at the very least, was actually Icefire Knights.
As someone who played that throughout the L6 and against a lot of Soiree, yes. The trouble with that was when they would run... So, the ones that would splash in the Cecil and stuff, that's when it got a little difficult for that deck.
Yeah, by the same token as well, though, really just any fire gave you such a such, I don't want to say advantage, a push in the right direction against Soiree, just because an Ami can just ruin their day and you just win off one well-placed Ami.
I will say this, since you're not Kanagawa, it did have an advantage. The advantage is called Ku-Sith. Not Ku-Sith, Ku-Chess Spell.
Well, yes. Yeah, so Mono Fire did really well in L6. Like, just the... I piloted a Mono Fire Luso deck. And just the ability to rip Squalls or Morrow, BFA, just those big guys, and then just play Ku-Chespel or have Ami in hand while your board expands for no reason. It's Soiree's worst nightmare.
I'm
playing more stuff than you for more free, and I have your counter in hand.
Yeah, I can't remember.
You are a lot braver individual than I am.
Well, I can't remember who it was, but they had like the red Garland and a bunch. Like they had like a good 3 forwards out that say cannot be damages reduced to 0, and I just go cool, activate Ku-Chess spell, and like okay, I'm like cool, do 4k to everything. Like okay, cool, do 5k to everything, and they're like okay, I'm like your stuff's dead. It's like oh no, these ones live. I'm like I activated Ku-Chess spell, and they're like what does that do? They're like oh you're in for a world of pain. Here you go. They read it and they're like. Oh, that's a thing. And I'm like, yes. And they just packed up their stuff, and it's like, okay.
That just casually deals with my board state.
Yeah. I think
what
got them was the different wording.
I think it was just one of those. And plus, on the same token as well, especially with the Ice Fire Knights build, Blastwell is just a house in that deck. Like, there is no way that card having that amount of very powerful text should have been printed at that rarity.
I've said this, and people have agreed and disagreed. This is something I stand by personally. In FF, the rarities do not matter.
Yeah, I don't think they do anymore.
No, I don't think they ever did, because rarities for the most part have 2 factors. Limited and secondary market. FF don't care about secondary market, and they generally don't focus on the limited too much.
Yeah, look, Amaterasu's are rare, so...
Yeah.
Best card in game is rare. Like...
So yeah, I stand by that. I think in this game, don't pay attention to the rarity when looking at the power of a card. Rarity...
Amaterasu is an Opus 12 rare. The new Sarah for next set is an Opus 17 legend. Like, yeah, rarity doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's definitely fair. That's definitely fair. We also spoiler alert on that one. You didn't know there was an Opus 17 Sarah coming. There's an Opus 17 Sarah coming.
I don't think that's too bad. Like we haven't described the card or anything. Yeah, but yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, please put. By the way, feel free to challenge anything we say. I like reading the comments and I like seeing different points of view. And I'll pass the message on to Bloodfist and Kanagawa if you guys want to yell at them about something. It'd be hilarious. YouTube sent me.
YouTube sent us all.
But yeah, I think in this game, the rarity doesn't matter. Don't worry. Like, it's a powerful card. It's a common. Okay, it's a powerful card in the common slot. Draft it. Because I actually think the rarity stamp on all the Black Waltzes, the Black Waltzes in the last set was for calculation in draft. I think they were purely put in those slots specifically because I did it. I did the math, and I was able to pull out a Black Waltz deck without Black Waltz 3. And because I was discarding them to the ones I could cast, I was only in 2 colors, splashing a bunch of other stuff. And it was a lightning deck, so I had Seymour, and I just put in a bunch of summons from other colors that I was discarding to feed Seymour.
Nice and tasty.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite drafts, because everyone's like, how are you pulling off all the black waltzes with just the red one? I'm like, because you don't need number 3.
Apparently not.
But yeah, I think that's everything we wanted to talk about L6. I think it's a good format. I think it needs a little bit more work and a little bit more love, but I think it's very viable.
On the note of L6, though, it has gone through a pretty significant change very recently with the bannings.
Yes, which is going to be our next topic.
Yes, that's kind of why I
It also
decided to
goes through an
segue.
even bigger change in about 3 weeks because Tyro doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
Like, L6 is a completely different game.
So I'll put this up. But yeah, we are... So this will be the end part for the L6. If people have questions or want to add anything, please feel free to. But now we're actually going to go talk about the new bannings. I'm just going to put it up.